Hello and welcome to another off-the-shelf board game review. Today we're looking at Alien Frontiers. Alien Frontiers is designed by Tory Niemann and published by Clever Mojo Games. Alien Frontiers is an area control worker placement game that actually uses dice as your worker placement mechanic. While it sounds a little bit strange, it actually works out extremely well. The game is for 2 to 4 players, designed for ages 13 and up. I'll get a little further than that, but I think that's a little bit high on the age scale. And the game is designed to play in 90 minutes or less. In Alien Frontiers, players are going to use their dice, which represent their spaceships, to dock at various locations across the board. These various locations are going to give them benefits, including the ability to manipulate the numeric amounts on dice by purchasing cards that have permanent abilities that allow you to modify the dice. You're going to move to these various locations on the board in an effort to grab resources so you can eventually land your space colonies on the planet down below. Now the game is going to be played until one player has landed all their colonies on the planet, and then the player who has the highest score at the end of the game is going to win. Alien Frontiers is a very low scoring game, though. As you can see, the scoreboard actually goes up to 14. Your average game is probably only going to score about 9 or 10 points. And the person who's going to win the game probably isn't going to win the game by more than 1 or 2 points. Alien Frontiers retails for $50, and for that $50 price you are actually getting some pretty good components. Start with the rulebook. The rulebook for Alien Frontiers is extremely well written. It contains a lot of gameplay examples. The back page has a very well done reference that has an iconic reference on the back, a quick play reference on the back also. And as I was saying, the game has a lot of gameplay examples. There's very little room for discrepancies after you get done reading this rulebook. There is almost an example for every instance of the game. Just showing you one page, you have one example, another example, another example. Some of the pages have multiple examples just for one section. Look at the Burroughs Desert, you have 3 examples, just anything to help lower the discrepancies that may be learned from or trying to learn the game. And in all honesty, the game really isn't that difficult to learn. There's actually one page dedicated to the actual rules for the game. The rest of it just goes into perfect details about how the different locations and the different cards in the game are used. Very well done rulebook, probably one of the better top 10 rulebooks I've seen designed for a game. Next is the game board. The game board is your traditional fold-out game board. Pretty well designed and constructed. I've had this game for I'd say about 1.5 years now, if not longer, and the game board has held up for a long time, hasn't fallen apart, hasn't torn or anything like that. The artwork on the game board is actually very thematic, very nice. It gives a very nice sci-fi theme to it. The text on the board is large enough to read from across the game board. The symbols are large, there's large spaces for the dice and everything like that. Very well designed game board. Artwork wise is very nice, very pleasing in the eyes. Very good job they did on the game board also. And again, nice thick cardboard they use for it. Pretty decent quality thick cardboard used for the game board itself too. And that goes on for the rest of the cardboard for the game. The scoring track is thick cardboard. The very few cardboard tokens actually come with the game. They're also thick cardboard too. The game does come with very good quality dice. They're standard dice, standard size. Very nice dice. They're designed. They're standard dice, but I mean they all come in different colors. They're nice. I like the quality they picked for them. They're not the standard, or I should say the substandard, very small microscopic dice that you see in some games. And in a game that uses dice, it's nice just to have some really good quality dice. The game also comes with wooden components. For the resources, you have components that are made out of wood. They're not plastic or anything like that. They're nice wooden components. Same thing goes for the colony bases. They're almost like a hemisphere. It's supposed to look, kind of reminds me of what would be a biodome or something like that. They're also made out of wood. They're painted. Very nice quality on them too. Finally, there's a couple more cardboard bits. Thick cardboard used on these. They are actually double-sided, which has no effect on gameplay really. But they're nice components. They're double-sided them just to make them easier to use. You don't have to fight with what side you're throwing them when you put them out on the game board. Good sized text on them. I should have showed you that. I apologize. The text on them is actually very nice. Very legible. And finally we come to the game cards. The cards for the game are also nicely done. There's artwork on all the cards. There's lots of text on them. Very nice cards. The quality of the cards is also good too. They're not the super thin cards. Not the thickest cardstock ever, but they're definitely more than decent. They have a good laminate on them. They're going to last a long time. Like I said, I've had this game for about a year and a half now. I was one of the people who got it when it really came back out in mid to 2011. And this game has received a lot of play, and my cards are still looking good, even at least over a year and a half now. Overall, the components for the game for $50, I think they're actually really well done. It may seem a little bit minimalistic because basically all you're getting is a wooden cube, some dice, and a game board. But the artwork on the board is very nice. The dice are full-size dice. They have a nice heft to them when you roll them. They come in multiple colors, which does add to the cost for producing a game. The cards are also good cardstock, and the scoring board and everything. Even the rule book, the components, really good quality on the components. You're getting a good value for your $50 investment. At its heart, Alien Frontiers is a worker placement game mixed in with a area control game. The challenge with the game comes in the fact that you are not always 100% in control of where you can place your workers during the game. And the reason why that is because on your turn, you're going to roll dice, which again represent your spaceships. And whatever you roll on your dice is going to decide where on the board you can place your spaceships to try to gain the resources you need to attain a victory. And while Alien Frontiers is a score-based game, the end game is triggered the moment a player launches their final colony onto the planet down below. And as soon as that's done, the player with the highest score is going to be the victor. Now you can also cheat players out of points because you gain extra points for not only having colonies on the planet, but also for having majority control of a certain location. But I'm getting ahead of myself right here. Alien Frontiers has a whole bunch of locations you're going to see all over the board, and these various locations are going to give you various benefits. The challenge is that if your dice roll doesn't read or produce a certain result, you can't use all those locations. For example, to use this location, you have to roll triples of any number, whether it's 3 1s, 3 3s, or 3 5s. They all need to match to use this location. Whereas you have this location, any die with any number can be used on this space, and you'll get a resource, as opposed to this space where you get your iron resource. The only way to do it is to have a number equal to or greater than the highest number on that space. So if there's a 2, 3, and a 4 on this space, the only way you can place one of your ships or your workers on the space is by placing a die with a value of 4 or higher. Another good example is this one, where the dice have to be a consecutive amount. So it'd be a 1, 2, 3, or a 4, 5, 6, as long as they are a consecutive amount. Or a space such as this, where both the dice have to be the same amount, so 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, for example. That's where a slight challenge comes with an Alien Frontier, or with the game. But there are actually cards in the game that allow you to manipulate your dice. Now these cards are going to have 2 abilities on them, most of them. There are a few cards, 2 cards in fact, that actually have no abilities on them. They simply give you points at the end of the game. There's the Alien City and the Alien Monument. Whoever controls these cards is going to get an extra point per card that they have, and there's only one of these, each of these in the deck. Whereas opposed to the rest of the cards, you notice there's actually 2 of each, such as 2 booster pods, 2 stasis beams, 2 data crystals, etc. There's 2 of each card, including the plasma cannon. Now each card is going to have 2 abilities on it. One is a use once per turn ability, and there's also a more powerful ability which requires you to discard the card, and then you get that ability. Now the way these cards work is you can use each card for their pay ability once per turn, but you can use as many cards as you want. So if you have all 5 of these cards and you can afford the resources, you can use all their pay abilities. You can only use 1 discard action per turn. So even if you have, for some strange reason, 7 cards, if you use this card's discard ability, you cannot use this card's discard ability or any other card's discard ability on that turn. So again, each one of the resource abilities you can use once per card, and out of all your cards you can use 1 discard ability on your turn. And the nice thing about these cards is they actually allow you to manipulate the dice in the game. For example, we'll look at a card called the Stasis Beam. Stasis beam says that if you pay one resource, and that's your energy resource, which is the yellow circles, you can subtract 1 point for one of your unplaced ships. So what I could do with this is I could spend one resource, the energy resource, and I can turn this 3 into a 2, or alternately I could turn this 6 into a 5. Now, for example, if I rolled these dice and I had this right here, and let's say this happened to be a 2 and I needed doubles for any specific reason for a space I wanted to use, I would simply have this card in hand, spend the one resource, and then I can change this 2 into a 1, giving me the doubles I need, or that's the doubles I need to purchase another spaceship to add to my fleet, or it's the doubles I need to work on the orbital market to change some of my resources, my solar resources, into ore. Now the way you get the alien artifact cards is by having a total amount of dice placed on the alien artifact location equaling 8 or more. So for instance, if you have the 6 and the 3, you can place them for a total of 9, which will allow you to draw one of the 3 face-up alien artifact cards from the pile, the alien tech cards, and there's always 3 of these cards up at all times, and you can also cycle the deck too. Now where the area control aspect of Alien Frontiers comes in is through your colonies. Every time you land a colony on one of the places on the planet, you gain control of that area. And you'll notice that every one of these areas gives you a special ability. For example, the Burroughs Desert, and there is a token for a reminder, and you actually get this token if you have area control in that area, allows you to gain control of what's called the relic ship. Now the relic ship is actually an extra die for you to use. It's basically an extra free ship and allows you to go beyond the maximum of 6 that you're allowed in the game. You're allowed to have a minimum of 3 ships at all times, and you're allowed a maximum of 6 ships. But if you manage to get a hold of the Burroughs Desert, you also get the alien spaceship, allowing you to get a 7th die. Now the the area control aspect comes in is you only get to keep that as long as you have majority control of that area. If another player would come along and put one of their colonies in that area, you no longer have majority control of that area, and you would lose the ability to control the alien ship. And that card would be returned to the board along with the alien spaceship. Now if you manage to, through card play, the alien tech cards, manage to either kick this colony out, or if you manage to get a second colony, meaning that you now have more colonies in that area than your opponent, then you again regain control of that section, and you would again get the alien artifact ship. That is, if you're able to pay for it, does have a resource cost. And I always call it the alien artifact ship, but it's actually called a relic ship. And I apologize if that does cause confusion. It is called a relic ship, but my oldest son loves calling it the alien artifact ship, and it's stuck for me. I'm sorry, it's just something. But if I call it the alien artifact ship, just so you know, I mean the relic ship. Now the way you gain points in Alien Frontiers is by placing your colonies on the planet. You get 1 point for every colony you manage to land on a planet, plus you get an additional point for every area that you have majority control in. There's also one additional way to get a victory point besides the 2 cards I showed you. There's also the positron field. And if you manage to get the positron field in place on the board, you see that it says gain +1 victory point to whoever controls the territory where this is. So if this was in this territory, for example, this person would get 1 person for having a colony in that territory. They would get an extra point because they have area majority in that area. Plus they would get a 3rd point because they're in an area with the positron field, for a total of 3 points. Whereas over here, this person would have 2 points for having 2 colonies. They would have a 3rd point because they have majority control. So they would get a total, yellow would get 3 points just from this area, while blue would only get 1 point, because while they have a colony here for 1 point, they don't have majority control. So in this example, right now we'd be seeing a running total that blue would be having 4 points, yellow would have 3 points, and red would have 1 point. Interesting thing about Alien Frontiers, and then I'll go on to show you how the sample game is actually played, is the score is kept and our running total. It's a snapshot of how the current score standings are. If you really want to and you want to cause a little bit of extra excitement in the game, you can actually remove the scoreboard, but it's going to cause a little bit of analysis paralysis among the other players because they're going to be constantly trying to have a mental note of how high the score is. Something to do with more advanced players, but I definitely would not recommend doing that with new players. It's going to be a snapshot of the score, so if for some reason your score goes down because you lost this colony, your score would actually go down. So again, running total of the score, it's the current score with all the standings, and your score in this game will definitely go up and down as the game plays out. Alien Frontiers is one of those games that as soon as you understand the very simplistic basics of how the game is played, it's easier just to watch the game play and then you actually learn how the game is played overall. Showing you a sample game between 4 players. It is the start of the game. Nobody's actually taken their turn yet. Red, blue, green, and yellow are playing. Red is starting with the orbital teleporter, which allows them to pay 2 energy to move one ship to another location after it's already been docked. Blue has a plasma cannon, which allows them to spend energy and have a ship removed from one location and sent back to the maintenance bay. Green has the booster pod, which allows them to spend 1 energy to allow them to add 1 pip to any one of their dice. And finally, yellow starts with the stasis beam, which allows them to spend 1 energy to remove 1 pip from any one of the dice. There's currently 3 cards in the alien artifact right now. Normally they're kept off the board, but I placed them right here because my camera lens only has so much room before things will start going off camera, and I want you to actually see them. There's the alien city, which is worth 1 victory point to whoever controls it. The nice thing is you could actually take cards from other players by going to the Raiders outpost. So don't know if that's a card you want to grab too early in the game, but it depends how good you're feeling. Next thing is going to be the polarity device, which says pay 1 to flip one of your ships upside down to its opposite side. So 6 would become a 1, 2 became a 5, 3 would become a 4. And finally there's the resource cache, which is a really interesting card. Every time you roll all your dice or your ships, you're going to see whether you have more even or odd numbers, and you're going to get extra resources based on that. If you ever get exactly the same amount of even or odd dice on your roll, you're going to get 1 last resource out of the resource cache, and the resource cache card is going to be discarded. I'm going to go ahead and start the turn with red player. Again, just going to go through this, give you a quick explanation of what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Hopefully this will give you an idea of how Alien Frontiers is played. We're going to start the turn with red player. Remember, every player starts the game with 3 ships. You can never have less than 3 ships. You can never have more than 6, unless you happen to get the relic ship. Red's going to start their turn. They're going to roll the dice. Going to get a 3 and 2 4s. Not actually a bad start to the game, actually. If we had some resources, we could actually use this to get a ship by using our doubles right here, spending an energy and an ore, and we'd actually get another ship to add from the ship reserves. We'd be at 4. Unfortunately, red, as you see, doesn't start with any resources, so what we're actually going to do is we're going to move right there, and red is going to take the alien city for 1 victory point just to start off the game. It's going to be replaced with the data crystal, which allows you to pay 1 energy per colony on a planet to mimic any ability that is in that section. So for instance, if somebody had a colony here, you can spend 1 energy to actually use the ability of the Asimov crater. Red is going to score 1 victory point, and red still has 1 ship not placed, and red does need resources, so red is going to go over here and going to take 1 resource from the iron mines. Red player's turn is over. It's now the blue player's turn. I have a 1, 4, and a 6. Red is going to take the 6, get 3 energy, add it to their stockpile, and then they're going to spend 1 energy to replace this ship down here along with their 2 other ships, and they're going to start towards launching a colony. Now this colony is going to start 3 places over since they put 3 ships there. They only need 4 more ships and 1 energy and 1 iron, and they can actually launch this colony down to the planet. It's now the end of the blue player's turn. It's now the turn of the green player. Green's going to get doubles also, and a 2. Now, green is actually going to use this opportunity to get an extra ship. He actually has a very good start. Green already has 1 ore at the start of the game. He's going to place his 2 right here for 1 energy. He's then going to place his doubles over here at the shipyard. And he's going to spend his ore and his energy to gain another ship, which has come from the backup. And that's going to go to the maintenance bay available for green to roll on their next turn. Green is now at 4 ships, which gives them a very good advantage at the early start of the game. Now it's yellow's turn, and yellow's also going to get doubles, and yellow's going to take this opportunity to get 1 more ship by spending an ore and an energy. Yellow gets to add their yellow ship to the maintenance bay, and they have 1 left to spend right now. They're going to take this right here, and they're going to get 3 energy. That's the end of the first round. At the end of the first round, we see that nobody's launched a colony yet. Blue is already starting to make a dig for getting a colony onto the planet. Green and yellow both are going to start each additional round with 4 spaceships. And red is already 1 point in lead thanks to one of their alien tech cards. We're now going to move on to the second round. You'll notice that as players are placing their dice on the board, at the end of their turn, they're actually not picking up their dice. And you'll see there's a finite amount of spaces on each one of the boards. That also adds to the strategy. If there is a dice on a location, and that location, for example, just to use this, I'll pull this back off, but if all 3 of these spaces were filled with dice, that means nobody can build any ships on this turn until one of these players pulls their dice off at the start of their turn. That adds an additional level of strategy of the game. Pull that back again. I'll go and start the second round. Red is the first player. They're going to pull all their dice on the board up. Roll their dice. They're going to get a doubles and a 3. Red does have some ore, and it's always good to have more ships, so we'll spend the 3 right here. That'll give us 2 energy from the solar converter. Add that there, then we'll take our doubles, and we will get another ship, which will go to the maintenance bay. That's the end of the red player's turn. Now, it's going to be the blue player's turn right now, and if blue player rolls doubles, as I said, he is not going to be able to get any ships from the shipyard because all 3 slots are filled until one of these other 3 players pull those dice off to start their turn. Blue's going to start their turn. Going to get 2, 4, and a 5. Well, it looks like it's going to be a good time to pick up some ore, and we can actually do this quite easily. We're going to use the 2, 4, and the 5 here, and we're going to get 3 ore to go along with our 3 energy. Now at the end of your turn, you can never have more than 8 resources, and since blue is at 6, he's okay, but if he ever gets more than 8, he'll have to start discarding some of his resources. Move on to the green player. They're going to pick up their dice from the dock stations, plus their 4th die from the maintenance bay. And they're going to get 2 doubles this time. Now green doesn't have any resources yet to spend, but there is a way they can actually possibly get another ship onto the board. Nope, there's not. So they're gonna think about this one for a second here. Green is going to get some resources, 3 energy, and then they're also going to spend their remaining 3 dice to start working on getting one of their colonies launched also. So 3 dice equals 3 spaces over. It is now the end of the green player's turn, and now yellow can take their turn. They pick up their ship from the shipyard, from the maintenance bay, and they have doubles, a 4 and a 5. Now the lunar mine says that the only way you can get more from the lunar mine is if you place a die equal to or more than the highest die. So the only way you can get ore right now is if yellow would place a 5 or a 6 on this space. But there is such a thing as the orbital market, which allows you to exchange, if you have doubles, the value of the showing dice times the energy to turn to ore. So in this case, we could take all 3 of our solar energy and we can convert all 3 of those into ore. So I think that's what we're going to do. And then with their 5, they're going to take 3 energy back, leaving them really well off in the energy resources department. And then with their final 4, they are going to place it down here and also start working on their colony. That's the end of the second round. As you can see, the game goes pretty quick. I'm going to go a few more rounds just because I want you to be able to see what it looks like when somebody takes a location on the planet. But again, that's the end of the second round. It's now the start of the third round. Red is going to start by picking his die up from the maintenance bay, his 2 from the shipyard, and his final 1 from the solar converter. Rolls his dice, and he's going to get a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 6. Red is going to start off by being a little bit aggressive towards some of the other players. He's going to use the 2, 3, and 4 in the Raiders outpost. This allows Red to take up to 4 of any resources or 1 card from another player. Red is going to pick on blue a little bit just because he can. He's going to take 3 iron from blue and 1 more iron from yellow. That's going to leave red at a total of 7 resources. They'll be okay at the end of this round. And they're going to spend their last die, which is a 6, to launch a colony onto the planet. They're going to spend their ore and their energy, and they're going to land their colony here in the Burroughs Desert. Now this card becomes the ownership of the red player, and basically this says if I spend 1 ore and 1 energy, I get to add the relic ship to my fleet. As long as I control that area, we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to spend our energy and our ore, and now the relic ship is now the property of the red player. Starting on the red player's next turn, they're going to have these 3 dice. Not this dice, because it's going to be discarded because the terraforming station causes you whatever dice is placed there is actually discarded. But we will have the relic ship for a total of 4 dice. Move on to the scoring part. Red is actually going to score 2 points, 1 for having a colony landed, plus an additional 1 because they have the majority control of Burroughs Desert, putting red at 3 points and in the lead. Blue player picks up their dice and gets a 1, 2, and a 4. Let's see here. Red is going to go to the alien artifact, spend all 8, or actually that's 7, so he's not going to do that, sorry. Actually, blue's going to try to get a little bit of his resources back. He's going to spend the 1, the 2, and the 4 to get some iron ore. That'll give him 3 iron ore. Probably not the best move, but it's always good to have iron ore. It's the best to always have at least a couple of that because it's the harder resource to get between the iron and the solar converter. It's now green's turn. Green picks up their dice, rolls, gets 2 doubles. Red is going to take both of the 5s, place them here to get 2 ore, and then they're going to take their doubles, place them in the shipyard, spend 2 energy, 2 ore for their 5th die, which is going to go to the maintenance yard. And that's going to be the end of the green player's turn. We now move on to the yellow player who picks up their dice, rolls their dice, gets doubles, and a 3 and a 4. Just to show you how you can attack other players and be aggressive towards other players, yellow's going to use the 3, 4, and 5. Again, probably not the best move, but I'm just trying to show you how the game is played. To bump these ships off, and they get to use the Raiders outpost now, and yellow is going to try to gain a couple resources. And they're going to go for the alien city card from red. Red is going to lose 1 point, and yellow is now going to gain 1 point. Yellow still has one die left to place. They are going to place it up here just to get the energy. It would have been nice to get some ore down there, but you'll see all the spaces are covered there, so they're going to get 3 energy. Bring them up to a total of 8 resources at the end of their turn. That's the end of the third turn of the game. Gives you a good idea of how to play the game. Shows at the end of the game, or at the end of this round, red is at 2, yellow is at 1, and blue and green both have 0 points. As a father of 2 young board gamers, it's very important for me to look at board games and decide if they're games that I want my younger children to play. So every time I do a review of a game, I like to take a second to talk about the age on the game and see how well or how appropriate that age requirement is for on the game. Now, Alien Frontiers says that's for ages 13 and plus. And in all honesty, I think that is extremely on the high end. I play this game with my 7-year-old. He loves this game. He has a lot of fun. He can easily grasp the concepts of the game. It's simply rolling your dice and placing your dice on the board and trying to get your resources to try to score the most points to win the game. He understands that your colonies will give you your points. He understands area control. He understands that, that iron ore is the, I hate to say the term better resource. I say better only because it's the harder resource to get than solar converter energy. You see there's only 5 spaces to get energy from the ore from the lunar mine, while you see there's 8 spaces to get something from the solar converter. And there's no requirement for the solar converter, while the lunar mine does have a requirement of you have to have a higher die value or equal to the current highest die value. So he understands the concepts like that. He knows that he can adjust his dice by using the alien artifact cards and everything like that. And he enjoys this game a lot. He requested it. He has a lot of fun with it. And I like the fact that it's teaching him a whole bunch of the concepts. It's teaching him future planning. It's teaching him math. And while it's very basic math for him, I mean, he's in 2nd grade, so this kind of addition and subtraction is very simple for him. But it allows him to use future planning and think about his future moves and everything along those lines. And that's one of the things I really like about Alien Frontiers. The game is very deep, though. If you learn the game and learn the ins and outs of the games, you'll learn that it is very deep, and that makes it very enjoyable for adults. The game can also get very cutthroat, which may not be the best for some of the younger kids. When you play Alien Frontiers with the younger ones, you cannot play as cutthroat as this game will let you. It is possible to go from 1 or 2 points behind in this game to in one single move, landing a few of your colonies on the planets, bumping other players, and pulling a win out of the game, which can be a little bit frustrating for younger players, so that's something to consider. Overall, I think 8, 9 is a great age range for this game. Even a 7-year-old can enjoy this game and understand the concepts very well. I think 13 is pretty much on the high end. And if you want my honest opinion, the only reason why they did that is because of these very small planetary components that come with the game. I think that's one of the only reasons why it got the higher 13 and up range. I really think this is a great game for families. It plays up to 4 players. There's an expansion that's been out for almost a year now that allows you to add a 5th player to the game. I think Alien Frontiers, great family game, great for a good age range, just overall fantastic on that aspect. Alien Frontiers lists as a game for 2 to 4 players, and I think Alien Frontiers is at its best as a 4-player game. Now don't get me wrong, the game is very enjoyable as a 2 or a 3-player game, and the game is actually balanced for multiple player counts because it's supposed to be a game that makes you feel very crowded, makes the resources feel like they're drying up over time. And to help facilitate that, you'll notice that there's certain spots in the game that have some dots on it. So in a 2-player game, you'll notice that there's these 3 spaces right here are not available, and you'll represent that by placing dice to get rid of that spot. In a 3-player game, this space is not available. And in a 3-player game, these 2 spaces are also not available. And in a 3-player game, this space is not available. And you place these dice to help show you that the game board is getting a little more constricted. And that's one thing I like about the game. It is designed and balanced for multiple player counts. But the game is designed to have kind of a backstabby feel. And to me, those kinds of games are best the more players you have. And that's why I think Alien Frontiers, as a 4-player game, is its absolute best form. You're going to see lots of back and forth, lots of, I hate to use the term backstabbing, but it's more like a come from behind type of game where you'll be down by 1 point. Through clever card play, you'll manage to pull the game out and pull the win out, which is just even more enjoyable in a 4-player game. Again, Alien Frontiers, great as a 2, 3, or 4-player game, but I think it's at its absolute best as a 4-player game. By now it should come as no surprise to you that I really, really like the game of Alien Frontiers. I think it's a really fantastically well-designed game. I really enjoy it. I've played it numerous times. I've had it in my collection for well over a year now, and it's a game that's going to stay in my collection as long as I have a board game collection. This wasn't intended to be a 20 plays later review or anything like that, although it's almost turning out to be kind of like that at this point. If you're really looking for a 20 plays later type review or something like that, I'd actually recommend you check out a podcast called The Long View. The Long View is a podcast that actually specifically targets games that have been out in the past that have either fallen out of the hotness or that deserve a second look from you. And I'll put a link up to that at the bottom of the video, but that's The Long View. It's a very well designed podcast that's actually been out for a full year now. As I was saying, I think Alien Frontiers is a really good, fantastic game though. Things I like about the game is I really enjoy the very direct player interaction. I like how you are influencing other players constantly, whether it's through the area control here on the planet or just taking up spots on the board. It's actually possible to directly impact other players and help influence or detract from other players' strategies in this game. I like how the game can get very cutthroat and the end game has lots of aggressive maneuvering. The game actually numerous times for me has come down to literally winning by only 1 point, and sometimes that's coming from second or third place to finally make a good score at the end of the game that's going to score either through plans or careful maneuvering. It's going to get you that final amount of points that you need, and you're going to win the game by that 1 point. And that's some of the things I really, really love about Alien Frontiers. I also like how the end game is controlled by the players. This isn't a game where you're going to play X amount of turns and the game's going to be over. The game is going to end the moment a player places that final colony on the planet. No matter where it lands, as soon as that final colony lands, the game is over. So I like the fact that this controls how the end game comes, which means you are constantly monitoring your other opponents. As soon as you notice one of the other players has 1 colony left, you need to start watching them very carefully and watching their moves, which can lead to one of the negatives of the game. This game does have a very strong dogpiling aspect to it. If somebody's down to 1 colony and you see that they are, as the score stands, in the lead, not only do you want to, but all the other players are going to be along with you trying to dogpile on this one person, which can cause almost a game where you don't want to be the first player in this game. You want to be in the second place with a really masterful plan in the back of your mind that's going to affect your opponents, especially the person in first place, drop their score enough that you can leapfrog past them, drop your final colony, and win the game. And you really, on that note, really need to be paying attention to the other players. If you're not paying attention to what they're doing, it's almost going to feel like the end game is almost snuck up on you in this game. You're going to be playing, not paying attention to other players' moves. They're suddenly going to make a move. They're going to drop a few colonies on the planet. They're going to drop another colony on a location where you thought you had area control. Your score is going to drop 1 point. They're going to pull out the end game. They're going to pull out the victory, and you're going to sit there scratching your head wondering what happened to your grand master plan that only needed 1 or 2 more turns to come to fruition. And that's something you have to be really cautious about with this game. You have to be monitoring your opponents at all times. The game can have a little bit of an analysis paralysis feel to it, especially the first couple times you play the game. Now when you're watching me take my turns, I was kind of going kind of quickly and probably wasn't picking the most optimal moves, but I was just trying to show you how to play the game. New players in this game are going to feel kind of overwhelmed. They're going to feel like they have so many options, and they're going to feel like their options are controlled by the dice. As you play the game more, you're going to realize though that your options are not really limited by the dice. Your options are limited by how far future planned you predicted your moves in advance. If you get some good alien artifact or alien tech cards, you can start influencing your dice results, meaning that your scores and your maneuvering isn't as based on the dice as you think they are. For example, if you roll a dice and you don't have any alien tech cards to modify these dice, a 3, 5, 6 isn't the best dice to roll, especially if you're trying to get another ship. But if you have the alien tech card that allows you to drop one die by 1 and raise another die by 6, you now have the doubles you need, especially if you have the resources to place these and get another ship from the shipyard. So this game does require a lot of future planning, and you can't ignore the alien tech cards. You have to get some of them. They're going to help you control your dice and also allow you to control what the other players are doing. Also along those lines, the planet also gives you additional benefits, and they're also going to help you control how well or how badly the dice are influencing your decisions and your actions on your turn. If you're smart enough to get the right locations early in the game, you can pretty much control how your dice are rolling just by the simple fact that you can manipulate them just by using your resources and get the results you need to land on the locations you need to score the points you need to win the game. And unfortunately in this game, poor early planning can actually influence you later on in the game. If you don't concentrate on getting ore in the early stages of the game, you're going to start having problems in the later stages of the game, because the ore is actually the harder resource to get. And the simple reason why is because it requires you to have a die equal to or higher than the current die. Now if a player lands one ship there with a 6, that means nobody can get ore unless they roll a 6 or a high, or well, you can't roll higher, so unless you roll a 6, even though there are 4 remaining spaces. And rolling a 6 is also a good way to get a terraforming station down on the planet. So you can actually control how other players are getting ore by simply placing one of your ships there with a 6. And if another player rolls their dice and they have a 1, 2, or 5, they can't get any ore at all unless they visit the orbital market and exchange their ore, possibly at a very bad rate, by exchanging their energy for the ore. So learning that ore is a very, very powerful commodity in this game is a good strategy of learning the game in the beginning. Also learning that, well, it's pretty obvious, but the more dice you have to roll, the better the chances are that you're going to get the numbers that you need. So if you're spending the entire game with only 3 ships, you're not going to have many options for your locations you're going to go to. Whereas if you do your best to try to get 6 ships in the early stages of the game, you can pretty much guarantee there's a good chance you're going to at least get one of the locations on the board that you're trying for on your turn. Now, Alien Frontiers isn't a perfect game. There are a few negatives, and I've already mentioned them. The analysis paralysis that can be caused by new players can be a problem, especially for the first couple times you play the game. The best way to overcome that, I always suggest for new players, concentrate on getting the ore, concentrate on getting as many ships as they can in their hand to help influence their actions, and try to concentrate on getting at least a few of the alien tech cards so they can start influencing their dice rolls. That seems to help a lot of the players with the AP, helping them see what their potential is to help manipulate their future moves. The other thing that can be a negative for the game is the scoring. The scoring is open, and the game does allow you to dogpile on the leader anytime you want. And if there's a leader and it looks like they're about to pull the win out of the game, everybody's going to dogpile on them. And if that's an aspect of a game that bothers you, you may want to play Alien Frontiers before you make the purchase. Now, having said all this, there is an expansion available for Alien Frontiers called Factions. I don't own it, but if I ever get a copy of it, I'm definitely going to review it because I do really enjoy Alien Frontiers. But Alien Frontiers does a few things that I find make a great game, almost nearly a perfect game for me. One, it adds a 5th player. Secondly, it adds the ability for variable player powers by having the factions. That's why it's called the Factions expansion. And finally, it adds a little bit of a hidden scoring element. And all 3 of those things are things that I think would make Alien Frontiers an absolutely fantastic game. Overall, I think Alien Frontiers is a fantastic game. I really enjoy it. Check it out, you might enjoy it too. This has been another off-the-shelf board game review. Thanks for watching.